It's a problem with the man. You know it. You know it's a problem with the man. And when you see families where the guy loses all of the wives, you're like, yeah, that's him.
The courtroom was packed shoulder to shoulder, yet the silence was suffocating. So thick it clung to the walls and pressed against every chest like a weight. Not a cough, not a shuffle, not even a whispered breath broke the air. Even the TLC, producers seated in the front row, usually quick to scribble notes, had frozen mid-sentence, their pens suspended in disbelief. Behind them, the Brown family sat in fractured silence, some stiff and unblinking, others shifting uneasily like passengers in a slow-motion train crash. But all eyes snapped forward when Christine Brown rose from her seat. The scraping sound of her chair dragged across the courtroom floor with a screech that echoed far louder than it should have. She stood tall, not with arrogance, but with purpose. Her emerald green blouse shimmered faintly under the fluorescent lights, not as a fashion choice, but like a warrior donning her armor. Christine's face was composed, but her fingers betrayed her. They trembled at her sides, not from fear, but from rage. Rage that had brewed for over a decade, hidden behind carefully constructed smiles. "I'm fine's" whispered through gritted teeth, and countless swallowed tears. She turned toward the judge, her voice low and brittle, threatening to shatter. "Your Honor," she began, "for over 10 years, I contributed to a grocery fund. A fund I believed was meant for all of us, each wife, every child, our entire family." She paused, her breath caught in her throat. The room leaned forward, the tension coiled tighter. "But it was a lie," she finally spat, the words slicing through the silence like a knife. Gasps erupted instantly. The energy shifted. The illusion cracked. Robyn, seated behind the defense table, parted her lips to speak, but nothing came. Her hand clutched a tissue, eyes blinking rapidly like she was bracing for impact. Cody, stiff behind her, folded his arms like a man on trial in everything but name. He stared ahead, stone-faced, as if detached from the fallout unraveling before him. But Christine wasn't finished. Not even close. "I fed Robyn's family," Christine said, her voice rising with each syllable, "while my own children survived on scraps." Audible gasps punctured the courtroom like gunshots. "That wasn't sisterhood," she growled. "That was betrayal. And I'm standing here today because nobody else would." Her eyes scanned the room, not for pity, but for acknowledgement. Not in our homes, not on our show, and not in the family we were told to believe in. The judge didn't interrupt. He let her speak. This was no longer testimony, it was an exorcism. Christine stepped forward, her fingers fumbling inside her purse before pulling out a piece of crumpled paper. The edges were worn, the folds deep like scars from years of opening and reopening. A document that had become a silent witness to a decade of deception. "This," she said, "is the original pact we all signed. Equal contributions, equal groceries, equal care for every child. I lived by that. I taught my children to live by that." Her voice cracked, then hardened. But eventually, I realized that equality was only expected of me. Across the courtroom, Robyn leaned toward her attorney and whispered something, but her lawyer didn't respond. She too was locked on Christine, riveted by the rare and rising storm now commanding the entire room. Christine's own lawyer remained seated, calm and confident, knowing full well that her client didn't need defense. She was delivering justice on her own. "I remember one night," Christine said quietly. "My daughter Isabel was crying. All we had left was eggs and a half-empty jar of peanut butter. I called Robyn. I explained we were short. I asked if we could borrow from the family fund." Her jaw tensed. She said the order had already been placed, that she couldn't change anything because her kids were picky eaters. Wave of disgusted murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Christine rubbed her forehead as if trying to erase the memory. "But I had just deposited my share, 2 days earlier. That fund was part mine. My children were part of that order, or so I believed. That's when I started keeping records." She stepped aside and retrieved a heavy box from the plaintiff's table, her every movement deliberate. She set it on the witness stand with a quiet but powerful thud. 10 years of deposits, grocery lists, receipts, delivery slips, every pattern the same. My money paid for Robyn's groceries, and my children were left with crusts. Her eyes burned. The math never added up. The food never made...
You cannot ever blame the fact that Robyn and I had a deep love on the way that...
Food never made it. At last, Robyn snapped. I didn't do anything wrong, she blurted, her voice trembling. My kids are younger. They have dietary needs. Christine's just... Miss Brown, the judge said, raising a hand firmly. You'll have your turn. But Christine didn't even blink. Her gaze was steady, her voice cutting. You always told us we needed Robyn, she said finally, addressing Cody without looking at him. And maybe you did, but we needed you too. Her voice thickened with pain. I had 6 kids under one roof and no man at the table. Robyn had you on the couch every night, and she had all the groceries. Fresh fruit, full cupboards, beef in the freezer, everything. Her throat tightened. My children thought we were poor, but we weren't. We were just forgotten. Tears brimmed but refused to fall. She held herself together, barely. Outside the courtroom doors, TLC cameras captured every second, and even the show's producers admitted they had never seen Christine like this. Not with this fire, not with this fury. She squared her shoulders one final time and turned to the judge. This isn't about money, she said. It's about fairness. About whether children are fed or left hungry. It's about promises made and broken. I'm not here to ruin anyone. I'm here to protect the people I love. The judge gave a slow nod. Thank you, Ms. Brown, he said gently. Christine sat down. She exhaled, deep and long, like a decade's worth of weight finally slipping from her shoulders. And for the first time in years, she felt it. Lightness. Across the courtroom, Robyn stared down at her lap, shredding her tissue to pieces. Cody still hadn't looked up. And above it all, Christine's words hovered like smoke from a long-awaited blaze. Fierce, lingering, unforgettable. Then came the evidence. Christine's attorney, Rachel Vance, composed, sharp, and unshaken, stood from her seat. With one hand, she gestured toward the stack of binders that now sat like silent witnesses on the table. She walked to the front of the courtroom, her heels echoing with authority, and said clearly, Your Honor.
Communicating with me, loving me.
And negotiating with you.
Yes, and respecting herself, okay?
The tension hadn't eased one bit as Rachel Vance, calm and composed, faced the court. We are now presenting Exhibit A, she said, her voice firm yet controlled. These are 10 years' worth of payment records, online transfers, itemized, delivery receipts, and household budgets, all tracked and preserved by the plaintiff. She clicked a remote in her hand, and behind her, the courtroom screen flickered to life. The first slide displayed an overwhelming spreadsheet, numbers scrolling endlessly down its columns. Christine Brown had contributed monthly to the shared grocery fund from 2013 to 2021, anywhere between $600 and $1,000 per month depending on the needs of the family. Each transfer was documented, verified, and, on more than a dozen occasions, explicitly labeled as grocery budget. Yet the receiving account? Every time it was under Robyn Brown's name. A soft, collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, like a chill wind. Cody shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable for the first time that day. Rachel turned toward the screen again, this time revealing a bold bar graph. In those years, she said, the family made approximately 128 grocery orders monthly or bi-weekly, and out of all those, only 7 were delivered to Christine's household. The number hung in the air like a curse. Robyn leaned forward, whispering something sharp into her lawyer's ear. The defense attorney scribbled notes, but still refrained from interrupting. Rachel didn't slow down. She clicked again. The images that now appeared silenced, even the murmurs. Side-by-side photo comparisons lit up the courtroom screen. Robyn's pantry was immaculate, color-coded bins, shelves bursting with organic canned goods, protein bars, vitamins, gourmet snacks. Christine's fridge? A sparse collection of eggs, a half-used stick of butter, and a bottle of off-brand ketchup, The courtroom barely breathed. More photos rotated onto the screen. Robyn's freezer was stocked like a restaurant's back kitchen. Salmon, fillets, frozen fruits, pre-marinated meats, ready-made dinners. Christine's freezer held frostbitten chicken legs wrapped in a plastic bag and a half-empty bag of frozen vegetables. Rachel turned to Christine. "Miss Brown, can you confirm the authenticity of these photos?" Christine nodded solemnly. "I took them the same day. 2 houses, same fund, but only one fridge reflected the bank balance." She paused. "And it wasn't mine." Rachel faced the jury, her voice gathering intensity. "This isn't about envy. It's about justice. Christine contributed faithfully to a shared system, but instead of equality, what she received was crumbs. While another household thrived off her sacrifice." The jury was captivated. One juror wiped their eye discreetly with a tissue. "Exhibit B," Rachel continued. A second screen illuminated. Christine's Venmo and PayPal records, over 100 distinct transactions, all categorized for household or grocery use, all transferred directly to Robyn Brown's accounts. The corresponding grocery receipts flashed next, amounts matched, purchases listed in detail. Then Rachel dropped the hammer. "Yet the deliveries," she said, her voice steely, "almost exclusively went to one address." She tapped again. A map exploded onto the screen, hundreds of location pins. 95% of all grocery orders were delivered to Robyn Brown's home. A few orders went to Mary or Janelle. Christine, less than 5% of 10 years' worth of orders. Cody exhaled heavily, the weight of the numbers undeniable. Robyn's voice broke the silence, barely above a whisper but tinged with panic. "I had the youngest kids," she said, almost pleading. "They were in school. They needed packed lunches. I wasn't hoarding food. Christine is she's turning this into drama." Rachel, unshaken, took a step forward. "Let's clarify then. You used a joint household fund for groceries meant to feed multiple homes and only ordered for your children?" Robyn hesitated. I didn't track it that closely. I didn't count portions. But you made the orders. You scheduled the deliveries. You called the vendors, correct?" Rachel pressed. Robyn nodded slowly. "And still, 10 years later, Christine only received groceries 7 times. Robyn had no answer. Rachel turned back to the screen. "Let's hear from 2019, she said, pressing play on a voice recording. Christine's voice, slightly crackly from the phone's speaker, asked, "Hey, I saw the Costco order. Was any of that for our house?" Robyn's recorded voice responded, "No, sorry. I had to order extra this week. The kids are blowing through snacks. I'll make sure you get something next time." Christine's voice again strained. "It's been 5 months since we've gotten anything." Robyn's voice softer now. "Yeah, I know, but this order was kind of necessary." The last line replayed, haunting and unforgettable. "Yeah, I know, but this order was kind of necessary." Christine stood, holding up a printed screenshot of a text exchange. She pointed to a Wednesday request. Her text, "Can I grab a few things this week from the fund?" Robyn's reply, "Order already submitted. Sorry, let's circle back next cycle." Christine's voice broke. There never was a next cycle. The words rang through the courtroom like bells tolling. Over a battlefield. "I began baking bread from scratch," Christine admitted quietly. "Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't afford a $3 loaf of bread and still pack fruit in my kids' lunches." Her voice shook. "I had to choose." Rachel looked directly at the jury. "This isn't hyperbole. This is targeted neglect." Christine believed in the family fund. She honored it. She trusted Robyn to distribute it fairly. Rachel walked along the jury box slowly. Instead, Robyn took that trust and exploited it. She turned toward Robyn. "While you were blending smoothies and baking almond-crusted chicken, Christine was telling her children, just wait 3 more days. She was cutting mold off blocks of cheese. She was making powdered milk stretch 4 mornings instead of 2. Robyn stood up suddenly, her voice rising. "I did my best." The courtroom jolted, but the judge only raised an eyebrow. "Sit down, Mrs. Brown. You'll get your turn." He then looked at the second row, at Christine's children. Their expressions were calm, but deeply haunted. You could see it, the pain, the memories, the hunger they never truly voiced. Rachel softened her tone. This was never about groceries. It was about what the groceries represented: security, fairness, respect, dignity, and for a decade. That was stolen from one half of this family while the other had seconds. Christine sat, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. The evidence had spoken. And in doing so, it said what silence had never dared to. Christine wasn't bitter. She had been betrayed. Then, the unexpected happened. The judge adjusted his robe, cleared his throat, and turned back to the courtroom. "The court will now hear the next witness for the plaintiff," he announced. "Miss Gwen Brown." The gallery stirred with murmurs, low, shocked voices like thunder rolling over a mountain range. And then, from the gallery bench, Gwendolyn Brown rose. Her face was bare. No makeup, no earrings. Just quiet courage in a gray blazer and black jeans. She walked with purpose to the stand. Christine's eyes lifted, filled with pride, but Gwendolyn didn't meet her gaze. Her eyes were already locked on Robyn. After being sworn in, Rachel stepped forward again. "Miss Brown, can you please tell the court your relationship to the plaintiff?" Gwen didn't flinch. "She's my mom. I'm one of Christine Brown's 6 children." "You're 23?" Rachel asked. "Yes." "And during the years your mother contributed to the grocery fund, did you live at home?" "I did," Gwen answered, voice steady. "From childhood through my college breaks." Rachel nodded. "And during that time, did anything strike you as strange about your household groceries?" Gwen let out a soft laugh, not from humor but pain. "Yeah, I noticed we didn't have any." The courtroom chuckled lightly. Even the judge cracked a smile before regaining composure. Gwen leaned forward. "Growing up, I assumed we were broke. Dinner was always rice, maybe frozen corn, sometimes toast with peanut butter." She paused, her voice tightening. "But when I babysat for Robyn, her kitchen looked like Costco exploded in it." The attorney raised her brow. "Explain?" "Organic cereal, name-brand snacks, Lunchables, juice boxes, yogurts, fresh chicken, frozen lasagna. There was so much food, and it was always just for her kids." Gwen looked directly at Robyn. "She told me once, there just wasn't enough to go around this time. But somehow, there was enough for her house." Rachel nodded slowly. "Did you ever confront her?" "I did," Gwen said. "I was 17. I asked if we could take some snacks home after babysitting. She said, 'Those are for my kids.'" A wave of gasps flooded the room. Christine lowered her head, biting her lip. Gwen swallowed. "I told my mom. She just said we had enough. But we didn't. She knew it. She just didn't want to start another war." The next slide appeared on the projector, a screenshot of a text. Exchange between Gwen and Christine. Gwen and Christine. The courtroom had never felt so cold. As Robyn sat frozen, the silence choking her like a tightening noose, Christine's attorney rose once more. The murmurs from the gallery were deafening in their silence. Everyone was waiting for the final blow. Christine had held her composure all through the proceedings, but now there was fire in her eyes. A woman scorned, betrayed, and pushed aside was about to speak. She didn't need theatrics. Her words were her sword, and she had been sharpening them for years. She stepped forward, not to the witness stand, but toward the judge. "Your Honor," she said, voice unwavering, "I have lived through deception cloaked as love. I have carried burdens placed on me by a man who once called me wife. And I have watched Robyn manipulate the truth until it suited her narrative." The judge nodded for her to continue. Robyn's eyes darted nervously. Cody wasn't in the room. He hadn't been for the past 3 sessions. His absence now felt like abandonment, the final straw in a story riddled with betrayal. Christine opened her purse and gently placed a series of envelopes on the evidence table. "These," she said, "are the receipts, grocery bills, statements, dates, transactions, all pointing to one reality. I, along with my children, were funding Robyn's household under the pretense of family unity. But unity doesn't look like financial enslavement. The courtroom erupted. Robyn turned pale. The very thing she had tried to keep buried had been dug up and paraded in front of the world. The so-called grocery fund, which Robyn once justified as support for the family, now looked like a scam carefully curated to drain Christine's income. Christine continued, "While I struggled to feed my children, she was buying luxury items, organic shampoos, artisan teas, party decorations for celebrations we weren't invited to, thousands of dollars, all withdrawn under my name." The forensic accountant was called back. She presented a breakdown so detailed it left no room for interpretation. $32,187 misappropriated, and every dollar was linked directly to Robyn's household expenditures. Items no one else ever used. Subscriptions Christine never signed up for. Designer clothing for Robyn's children, while Christine's kids wore hand-me-downs. Robyn tried to defend herself, but her voice cracked under the weight of evidence. "I didn't mean..." Christine said it was okay. I thought she agreed. But even the judge looked unconvinced. Intent did not erase the trail of financial abuse. Robyn's tears had no weight here, not against the facts laid bare. Christine's final statement wasn't for the judge or the jury or even Robyn. It was for every woman who'd been silenced in the name of loyalty. "You called me a sister, wife, but what you really wanted was a servant, and I'll never apologize for walking away." Then came the verdict. The courtroom held its breath. The judge's voice rang out. The court finds Robyn Brown liable for financial misappropriation. The amount of $32,187 is to be repaid in full to Christine Brown, along with an additional penalty of $8,000 for emotional damages. Gasps filled the room. Christine didn't smile. She didn't need to. Justice had done what years of quiet suffering could not. Outside the courtroom, the world was watching. Fans, critics, and former supporters were already tweeting, posting, dissecting every word. Robyn exited the courthouse with her head down, face hidden behind oversized sunglasses, her once glamorous image now crumbling under the spotlight. Christine, on the other hand, walked out not just victorious, but reborn. For the first time in years, she wasn't dragging emotional chains behind her. She was free. She hugged her daughter Mykelti, who had flown in for the final hearing, tears in both their eyes. "You did it, Mom," she whispered. But even as the dust began to settle, whispers circulated that Robyn was planning an appeal, that she had hired a new PR firm to restore her image, that Cody, finally reappearing at a local restaurant, refused to speak to reporters, dodging questions about where he'd been or why he hadn't stood by Robyn during the trial. It didn't matter anymore. Because Christine didn't need to explain. She had won her dignity, her peace, and her truth. And in doing so, she had stripped Robyn of every mask she ever wore. And this was just the beginning of a very public unraveling.